Welcome to the Aspire Hub Up Close and Personal, our multiculturalism and anti-racism workshop series. Thank you for joining us. For those people that are joining us in person in Edmonton, thank you, welcome. And for those of us that are joining online on Zoom, welcome. Thank you. Please make yourself comfortable. Get ready to interact, to share, to ask questions. Don't be shy. We've come a long way. We started back in July, trying to understand the many faces of racism, knowing that it's different for all of us. Some people experience it, in certain ways, while others experience it in other ways. But we all agree that somehow racism touches us all. So we talked about that, and we learned a lot with Dr. Sekandi taking us through that session back in July. And then we moved on to leadership and anti-racism, where we have a number of speakers, a lot of people some people that are working on this subject in our community, coming to share their perspectives. They gave us a bit of hope because of all the work that is already ongoing in the community, knowing that this world, this country, this city, this province will be better just because of all the combined effort of all of us. That it will be better for our children, it will be better for us. This fight is not finished, and it's great to know that there are a lot of people that are taking the lead, and speaking up on our behalf. It was really encouraging to hear from those leaders come to share with us around leadership and anti-racism. And then we moved on to workshop 3, where we talked about understanding the Black, Indigenous, and youth of color in the context of the Canadian society. And we kind of pivoted a little bit because we went further to understand our identity, who we are. So Ms. Shayla and Ms. Noreen, they took us through a beautiful exercise with the Tree of Life. I have not recovered from that activity because it's such a beautiful one, and it's an exercise that I think we'll do again and again with our youth, just to be grounded and know who we are, know the many aspects of us that make us awesome, that make us who we are. So we went through the Tree of Life. We talked about several other aspects of racism and how we can continue to thrive, standing from who we are as Black people, being established in our identity, knowing who we are, and just continue to get support in community. So that activity is very rooted in community because it has so many aspects. So if you have not gone through that activity, I encourage you to go through it. Maybe we will try to share the Tree of Life document again so that folks that have not done it can do it. It's better when it's instructor led. So maybe we'll be opportune in the future to bring Ms. Shayla and Ms. Noreen back to take us through the Tree of Life again, because it was such a great activity. And then we moved on to talk about allyship, where again we had the opportunity to have Ms. Shayla and Ms. Noreen take us through allyship and how to be an ally, how to support our allies, and all this other awesome stuff. All the sessions are recorded, so they will be available on our website at some point as we finish up all of the sections and then all of the sessions, and then we will put them together so that people can continue to benefit from them. So today is so packed up. We have 2 important topics that we're going to be addressing today. We're going to be talking about police actions in the community, and then we will talk about anti-racism solutions that work. I am not an expert in any of this, so we have awesome people in the room, in person in Edmonton and online on Zoom. So we are going to have a balanced conversation today because we are kind of represented in both. So thank you, Ms. Sheila, for being online, because we know that you will ensure that those of us online will have a good experience sharing and learning. So that's it. That's how we've come. We've come a long way in this conversation. This up close and personal series is part of our health and wellness program. So you will be seeing us bringing different other conversations up. And that's why I believe that our relationship with Miss Sheila and with Miss Noreen is just beginning, because we are going to continue to bring them to the table to learn from their work. I will let them introduce themselves again for those that have not met them, because they are amazing people. This is what they do. Mental health is their specialization, and mental health is so crucial. It's so important. We cannot ignore it. We cannot ignore it because it affects everything. And so racism conversation or anti-racism conversations is just a little bit, or is a part of that. And that's why we think we will continue to benefit from them. So all the sessions we've had were recorded, and this session is also recorded. So we will make them available on our website so that people can continue to learn. And we will hopefully we'll be able to have more tables like this, more opportunities like this, where we can make space to listen and to learn. So today we are going to be talking about police actions in the community, and we're going to be talking about anti-racism solutions that work. But before I invite Ms. T for the land acknowledgement, I want to talk a little bit about Aspire Hub. Aspire Hub is a youth serving organization. We are located in Edmonton, but our reach, Edmonton, Alberta, but our reach is across the country. Our programming includes STEM and life skills. We teach coding, robotics, video editing, web development, all of the little skills in tech that a student can pivot to use to get jobs, or to advance their education, or even to just keep them busy and keep them out of trouble. That's also a win. So we have our tech programs, and then we also have our life skills program. We have leadership, we have financial literacy, which we call our Wealth Builders Club, our Wealth Builders Lab, and then we have health. So we have a lot of opportunity to continue to engage our families and our youth. Next week, we'll be having a joint, so every month we'll bring the students together for a joint STEM program where they come, we talk about, so we have an hour of leadership or financial literacy conversation, then they go into their different tech rooms. Those that are learning coding will go into coding, those that are learning web development or video editing, they go into their different classes. So we are having that, we do that monthly. But we also have our weekly classes. So this morning now, for example, the students in the coding and robotics program, they met and they built a bunch of things with a robot. And those sessions continue for all the other different programs. But we meet once a month together, all the different cohorts come together every month. So if you have young people between the age of 9 and 19, encourage them to look on our website, or maybe Gabriel will put it on in chat. It's aspirehub.org/tech plus. That's where they will be able to plug into that. And we also have a talent incubator program where students are matched for real life projects, with employers to experience real life projects. Some extended to internship, some extended to jobs. Is the project that we just started. So we hope that will grow, and we continue to help our students as well. We also have a cooking program coming on November 20, I believe it's 25th, where we are going to be cooking. We call it Jollof with Daddy. Jollof with Daddy. So if you want to join us, we invite you to join us to cook jollof and salad together. And it's at the comfort of your home. Last month, we cooked egusi and eba. It's a Nigerian food. We are going to be exploring different cultures. We're going to extend it to Kenyan food, to Ghanaian food, to, different food from all the different places that we all have roots in. So we invite you to join us. We meet monthly most of the time. Sometimes we adjust the schedule, but the next one is in November, is in 2 weeks. So we invite you to join us.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I think today we're doing 2 sessions in one, so bear with us and be excited with that. But I'll start off by acknowledging that we are based in Edmonton, and that is the Treaty 6 within the Métis homelands and the Métis nations of Alberta Region 4. We acknowledge these lands as the traditional territories of many First Nations, and as settlers in here, we are individuals that live and profit and enjoy the lands, but that also means recognizing the history that is in place. And today we are remembering because it's Remembrance Day. So we're going to take a minute of silence, and engage this the best way that you're comfortable. It's just a moment of silence to remember the ones that have sacrificed their lives for us to be here today. Thank you everyone for that. And it is November 11th, Remembrance Day. Some people get to hold it as a holiday today. Some get time off coming up, but we just wanted to acknowledge that as well. We do have one other speaker that will ask her to introduce herself and tell us what the story behind her name is. And that is Constable Amal Abdi. And she's just taking a seat right now. So, Constable, instead of asking you to tell us what you do, not that we can't see, we can, we wanted to know, why were you named Amal? What's the story behind your name?
Story behind my name. Okay, so my name in Arabic means hope. And so I was actually named after my mom's sister, who's also named that. And so I always thought it was a beautiful name. I always thought it was like a lovely name to have. And the meaning is just like, I feel like very perfect for myself. And so, yeah, that's the meaning behind my name. And I was named after a good aunt of mine who pretty much raised me with my mother. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I'm going to hand it over to Constable Amal to give us some actionable ways in which police are helping the community and keeping us safe and in line with our conversations on racism. So over to you.
Oh, hello, everyone. As you said, I'm Constable Amal Abdi. I've been working with EPS for now 8 years. Going into my 9th year, which is unbelievable. Time just flies by. And so I was initially a constable for, I would say now 7 to 8 years. And then I just moved to a new role. I work with the youth department, and I work with youth in different areas, which is I work with missing youth as well as Diversion First, which is a program where we try to divert kids rather than getting them into the criminal system, try to give them other ways to get out of that situation that they got themselves into. So because we don't want to criminalize young kids, right? We're trying to hope to give them better resources. And sometimes it's a mistake. It's not always the case for them to get themselves into trouble, right? As well as I just do youth calls. So any type of calls that are related to youth, I usually show up. So yeah, so it's pretty much what I do right now and what I've done. And patrol, that's like you do everything. You respond to all different calls. And so I've kind of seen everything out there. And so one of the reasons I joined as a police officer is because I used to do a lot of volunteering. I wasn't like I wanted to be a police officer since I was a kid. That was not a thing for me at all. Especially in my household, I don't think policing was even an option for many of us, right? Coming from an African background. And so, but what I did love is I loved working with the community. So I used to be out in the community, doing a lot of community work. And I happened to fall into working with the Chief Advisory Committee with the EPS. So I was just a volunteer there. And I was on the committee for the Muslim board because I am Muslim. And so that's when that was my first, exposure to police. And so I spoke to an officer, and as I worked along beside him and got into knowing what they do and everything like that, I was like, oh, this doesn't sound like a bad career at all. And so he actually even said, he's like, you should become a cop. I was like, I don't know about that. And I don't know how I'm going to tell my mom that. And so one thing led to another. I went to a couple of information sessions, and then I also saw the need in our community representation, right? So I feel like the police force should reflect the community it serves. And so I feel like we should encourage ourselves in our communities to tell any young individual that wants to be a police officer, go for it, because the best way to educate people around us is to be among them, right? And so, it's been an interesting experience because unfortunately, there's not that many female Black officers within EPS. I think I only know of maybe 5, and that's quite small for a big service, right? And so I do believe that it's a very important role that we carry. And I feel like in any role we are in any areas and field, when we are the minority, we do have to speak up for our people and speak for our communities. And so with that saying, so I've done a lot of community events, try to go out to all that and educate our community, because a lot of things I find that with our communities is that we don't know what our rights are. And so we don't know, we have limited knowledge about what police can do for you. A lot of us are like, we just want to avoid them at all costs, don't want to deal with them. That's not always the case, because we are here to help. We are here to be a resource if that's what you need in any area, right? And so what we try to do is educate people in that sense, going out to different various communities. We go out to new immigrants functions and stuff like that, because especially coming back from a lot of our countries, we might not have had that relationship with police force, positive relationships, right? So we're just trying to make sure that there's positive reinforcement that we are here to help. And then just like what can police do for you, right? We do many things in different facets of areas. So like domestic violence, of course, you call us, right? A lot of people are scared. They're like, well, I don't want to get into trouble. It's like, well, you're not going to get into trouble, but we are going to help you in trying to get what you need to get, right? Because a lot of people don't have resources and they're like, well, I don't want to get myself in trouble or anybody else or in the community. And so, so we do that. So we try to educate, especially with domestic violence. We try to educate with the youth we do camps. So we go out and do like really cool camps stuff where we were being out different areas in the police force, there's so many areas that I can't even list them all. But like usually the ones that kids love are like K9 with a dog. We bring out the patrol vehicle so they get to see the patrol vehicle. We have a tactical team. So those are the guys that wear all green and they have really cool stuff. So kids are like really excited about those guys. And then we have just different areas, right? There's like detectives, there's sergeants, there's just so many areas that you can chat with kids, as well as. So we go out to community stuff. We try to educate our community in like different areas. And not only me, there's other officers that come as well too. And then also we are trying to like events like this, come out to events like this and like ask if people have any questions. I'm more than happy to answer, because sometimes it's easier to ask somebody that looks like you. Some certain questions, right? And so I'm always more than happy to answer anyone's questions. And so, I feel like I kind of went on a spiel here.
No, thank you. That definitely gives us a great background. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to take us back to the beginning, where you were having to tell your parents that you've decided that this is the career path that you chose. Oh. How did that conversation go?
Oh, that conversation was very interesting, as I'm sure all of you would expect. And being a mother, I'm a mother now, and so I can only imagine what my mom felt like. Her eldest daughter coming saying, "I want to be a cop." She was. I think somebody earlier was saying she wanted me to go into nursing or teaching or, those other career paths. And I was like, no, Mom, this is the path I want to go on. And this is what I want. And she's like, but why? It's so dangerous. And she just felt like there's not many people that look like you. And especially when there's not many people that look like you, your family is always worried, right? And it's like in a community where it's only like majority Caucasian people, she's like, are you even going to fit in? And like, what are they going to say about you? And so she was really, really concerned, of course. And of course, granted, she's my mom, right? She's trying to look out for me. Some of the members of my family were supportive. My siblings, all supportive. They were like, yeah, go for it. And they were like my number one fans, which was amazing. Some other extended families are a bit worried because of just, we do, unfortunately, within specifically my community, there's not a really positive relationship with a lot of gun violence and a lot of death that has occurred where there's been negative experiences with it. But for me, that made it even more important for me to join, right? So I can be an advocate for my community. And so I can say, what are you doing for my community, right? And so, so it was very challenging. She was not the biggest fan. However, slowly as time went by, she definitely was on board and was so excited. And it's funny because I catch her going, to her friends, like, do you see my sister, my daughter? She's like a police officer, and she'll like show photo of me to her friends. Like, I don't even know who they are, but she just will show photos of people of me being a police officer. So she is so proud right now, and I think I'm so happy that she is on the positive side of things. Yeah, and she's so proud of it. So because it was hard because you want your mom to be proud of you in whatever thing you want to do, right? So, so she's definitely on board now, and honestly, within the community too, I was honestly surprised with the outpour of support. It was amazing, and
Well, and I think you highlighted something that we previously talked about. In order to change the systems, we have to be part of them, right? The representation, but we can't make those changes when we don't even know what goes on, right? So my next question to you is about policing. What is that about? Why do we have police?
Policing. So pretty much why we have that is because in a community, there are certain laws, right, that we have so that every citizen has to abide by. And so unfortunately, there are some people who become victimized. And so therefore, when people are victimized, they usually contact police. And so we're here to help and pretty much hold people accountable for their actions, as well as hopefully put them through the justice system and for victims to get their justice that they deserve, right? So that's pretty much what policing is about. And then not only the criminal side of things, we also have community as well too, right? So community building and community involvement. So that's also part of it. So pretty much, as they say, you'll see it everywhere. We're here to protect and serve. It's like just to sum it all up, right? So to protect those who are in need and then serve those who require our assistance.
Okay. And a big part of that policing is people knowing their rights, as you mentioned, right? So with knowing that systems are not always created for people like us or represent us, how do we understand the role of police? Knowing that sometimes those roles or regulations don't take into consideration our cultures, the way of doing things differently, or that maybe we didn't always come from spaces where the role of police was everyone is treated equal and you're innocent until you're proven guilty.
So your question is?
How do we interact with police knowing that people may not always come from spaces where police were friendly or they were treated fairly within that system?
I always say knowledge is power. So I always say educating yourself. And like, I'm not here to say that you're going to always get a positive experience, but even if you don't get a positive experience, how do you go about that? You can always go on the websites. There's always information that you can find on website of what police do and everything. And so, but the majority of the members though are truly there to help. And so, and even asking them, you can ask the police themselves, like, what can you do for me in this situation? Right. What are you able to provide me, and what do I need to provide you to like be able to get what I need to get? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can always ask questions. So I'm always about ask questions, ask why are you doing this? Because they should be able to articulate why they're doing what they're doing, right? And you have every right to know why they're doing. This should be a full transparency when it comes to the interaction with police, right? And so I always say ask questions, because that's the way you'll get your answer, and they'll explain themselves. And then just always, I would say, don't always think it's so negative every experience. Maybe there is a reason why they're doing it, and then just ask what's going on and just why you're doing it.
Yeah. And with that, do people have any questions for Constable Amal? Feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll keep asking all my desired questions I've always wanted to know. Well, you mentioned this earlier, but I was going to get there in saying we've previously met, and I know that you're a mom. And today, with you having gone through the experience of becoming a cop, how do you feel about your son going into the same field?
It's so funny because I think most cops are like, their kids don't become a cop. But you know what? Because I see what the job can do to some people. And so as a mother, you're always going to be like, oh my God, do you want to be a cop? But you know what? If he wants to be a cop, it's a very rewarding career. And I would support him. So I would definitely be like, as much as I'd be like, no, but I'd be like, of course, if that's the where you want to go, I definitely would support it because it is a job that I love. And I'm very happy that I was able to become a cop. So, and got exposed to it. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Keep your questions coming. Yes, there's a question.
Can you talk us through the process of becoming a police officer? Is it very difficult? And can you join in your 40s? Because I hear they have a good pension plan.
So becoming a police officer, it's an 8-step process. So it's quite a long process. It's been a long time since I did it. But from my recollection back then, it's pretty much you have to do write a writing test. You have to do a physical test. You have to do you have to go see a psychologist. You have to go see them. You have to do a polygraph. So there's quite a few steps for you to pass, and you have to pass each stage before you can go to the next stage, right? And so. And you know what? We have a lot of like recruiting class information, like so. And they're trying to hire right now. So, and it doesn't matter what age, because in my class, just so you know, there was a lady who was 40 in my class. So anyone can join as long as you meet the requirements. And you can find all those requirements on joineps.ca. So that's like gives you all the information. And I always recommend those who are interested. They also have this event called Running with the Recruiters. So what you do is there's the staff that work in the recruiting selection department. They go out. I believe there used to be 2 sessions. There used to be one in the morning and then one in after like 5 o'clock. So people when they get off work, once a week, and they'll go do like fitness tests and like do running, and they'll help you and train you, and then there's going to be other people who are also in the process, and so you're able to like talk to them like, hey, where are you at and what are you doing, and you can kind of it's a nice support system of trying to go through that process. So yeah, I would definitely, if anyone's interested, no matter how old you are, you definitely should go for it if you feel like you want to become a cop. So,
but there is a minimum age, right?
No.
So.
Sorry, minimum age. I'm asking. I thought you were like, minimum age. Yes. They say you can apply as soon as you're like 18. However, they do recommend life experience. So I think the youngest that's ever been hired on the job, I think it was 19, but it's very few that get hired at that young age. Usually, I would say the youngest is 21 that gets hired. Yeah, that's like your most common age as a young one.
And why is that?
Why is that? Because they want life experience. Because it's a hard job to like just get right into when you're 18. Because they always recommend like go to schooling or do another job for a bit, just so you can, because you're going to be working with the community, and you need those kind of life experience to kind of understand how to interact with the community, right? So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And you're talking about community, besides the access to the police coming out and doing different things, what are ways in which just any individual can get involved with the police, or even the police get involved with communities?
Other ways other than the community? Oh, that's a very good question. I got to think about this one. So, for people in the community to work with the police?
Yeah, whether they are volunteering. You mentioned that you had previously volunteered. Yeah. So how do people get involved in different ways with the police? Because I don't think the only way to work with the police is being a police officer. There are civilians that work with the police as well.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of civilian positions with the EPS. We have quite a big number of civilians, and they do like analysts. So like they do our intel or intelligence. They also do like very different HR. There's so many different departments that they work in the civilian that I can't name all. But yeah, there's definitely, you don't have to just be a police officer to work with Edmonton Police Service. There's definitely other areas within the service. We even have like advisory people that for certain communities that will help with the police, and they work with us. And they work in community relation. So there's just so many different areas that you can work in within the EPS. You don't have to just be a police officer to work in EPS. And as well as other things that you can volunteer. If you're ever interested, you could always do a ride along. So if you're ever interested in policing, you just have to go to the recruiting selection area, and then you ask them, I would like to do a ride along just to get the experience of what does the police officer do. And they will definitely sign you up. And then you go for a shift. You go for a shift with one of the members and then go for it. And I've taken a couple of people on shifts. So yeah.
That does sound exciting.
Yes.
That does. You mentioned being part of the advisory boards or different ways to support the police. What are ways in which our community can participate in order to inform some of the practices or the ways that the police engage with us?
Oh, that's very good. Well, I'm pretty sure the chief advisory committees are still up and running. And so I definitely would look into that and see. I personally don't know how to apply to that. So that's why I can't speak to it. And I don't really know the very details and I don't want to give wrong information out. But there's definitely, and you can definitely partake in actually having a seat at the table and discussing the matters that mean a lot to you, and then putting it forward to police and asking them, what are you doing about this? So there are areas, I just don't know them very well, so I can't speak to it that much.
Well, thank you. Well, because I'm thinking about being part of the anti-racism task force, or being able to influence ways in which the police are engaging with the community, or educating them about different cultures and ways that people do, right? So when the police come out and get to see that for us, we engage in food, dance, all of this stuff, right? So then things like that don't get to be criminalized because they get to see how it's part of the way that we do things.
Yes.
We have a question online. Go ahead, Mrs. Tope.
Thank you, Constable Amara, for honoring us, for being here today. Thank you so much. I want the camera to focus on her better. I want to admire the uniform a little bit. And we want people to be able to see the full, no, not like you leave. Don't leave Miss Noreen. But we want to be able to just see how more the camera has been cutting her a little bit. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. There's a question from one of the students in direct message asking, when a policeman or woman stops me, what should be my first response? A lot of us are afraid when we are stopped by police, and I think this student drives already. What should be my first response when a policeman stops me, being a Black boy?
So if a police officer stops you, as say if it's you're driving a vehicle, they usually when we stop, we usually tell you. So I'm stopping you today because you've been speeding, or I'm stopping you today because you have some infraction of a traffic thing. So honestly, you would just answer their questions. I don't think there's anything. And then just so you know, when you are driving a vehicle, the driver must present a license, proof of insurance, proof of registration of the vehicle. Those are all requirements as a driver in the province, right? So just know that those are just things that you just have to get ready and present. But besides that, they usually are pretty informative, asking you what they want from you, unless they stop you because they might think that you fit a description or something. You can always ask for what am I, why, you know what I mean? You can ask, is there something that had happened in the area? Is there a reason why you're stopping me? But usually if you are cooperative, I always say, being cooperative is way more to your benefit and a more better outcome than just being very defensive right off the bat, because they're honestly, most of the time they're just trying to ask you questions about a certain reason, for a certain reason. They can't just stop you for no reason. But if you feel like they had stopped you for no reason, just so you know, you can always ask a member their badge number. You take down their badge number and you can always place a complaint. So if you feel like there was no actual good reason that they stopped you, which could possibly happen, I definitely would say, sir, can I have your badge number? Because they always have to, they can't say no to you, right? They'll give you their badge number, and then you can always place a complaint if you feel like it was no reason for them to have stopped you.
Okay. So I'm hearing
Thank you so much.
Stay calm.
Stay calm, yes.
Still calm in the moment, right? Answer the questions that you're asked and not assuming that you've done something wrong.
100%.
Because sometimes it could just simply be, we're just checking everyone in the area. Because, yeah.
And we do that, just so you know. There'll be times where they tell us, okay, this hour to this hour, I just want you guys to be in this area, stop every vehicle that's in a certain infraction. That this month we have to do speeding, or this month is people not doing a full stop, or distracted driving. That's a big one. Everybody's distracted driving usually, you know what I mean? And so so we stop everybody. So it's not anybody in particular. So. Okay.
Ms. T has a question.
Okay, so I have one comment and a question, and I wanted someone to know that Constable Amal actually has a gun, so she's like a proper police officer. And
sorry, Missy, can you come? Can we hear you? We can't hear you here. Sorry. Can you come to the camera? To the mic?
Yes.
I was just saying that I just wanted you to know that Constable Amal actually is carrying a live weapon. She's like a proper police officer. Like, so just in case anyone thinks we faked it.
We are going to take photos. We are going to take a lot of photos. Is it okay if we take photos with you? Because this is recorded. So people are going to see this after? Is that how it's going to go on social media?
Oh, okay. That was out there. Got it.
Okay, so
thank you so much. Thank you, Constable. We appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. So I've got a question. So my question is, how can we generate a fair respect of the police that is not like intimidating fear? Like the first time I got pulled over, my daughter had just left an art class and she had all that art messy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling her she was going to destroy my car. She should get her useless art off my dashboard. It was at that point they pulled me over. They said I was being distracted. So I said, can you see she's going to damage my car? And the officer accepted that the child needed a reprimand and they let me go. The second time I was stopped, the officer my daughter was not in question. She was not her fault. I was like, okay. And then I stopped. So in this country, my experience has been fair. But I don't know if that's experience for everybody. So how do we then generate a balance between a healthy respect from an intimidating fear, especially if you're a Black youth, and especially if your trousers is sagged, especially if you're wearing an afro, what's that thing? Dress? Yeah, especially if you're looking like the stereotype, and you're in the north of Edmonton, for example.
So you know what? There's nothing to fear the police officers. I would say, don't get scared. But I know a lot of us. I'm not gonna lie to you. When there's a cop behind me and I'm a cop, I get nervous. I'm like, what am I doing? Am I driving properly? Am I following the speed limit? So that's just natural. I think that's just everyone feels that a little anxiety. Me as an officer still feels that anxiety. But honestly, like you said, most of the time it's a positive experience. It's just you. And you know what? Just tell them what's going on. If you're speeding, like, oh, I'm sorry, I was speeding. Like the more honest you are, the better they're like, I've given out warnings when somebody just owns the situation. They're like, officer, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been speeding. And I'd be like, okay, this time I'm gonna warn you. So if you but sometimes it won't be always that case, of course, right? And if you do get a negative experience, don't retaliate, don't get upset and don't yell or anything, because that just will escalate the situation. And we never want to escalate the situation, right? And so I would say in your best interest is just, as she say, stay calm, interact. And even if it's negative, just calmly take down their badge number. And then you could always deal with it in a different manner by placing a complaint. And I feel like you would get better results from that than you trying to take it on yourself, if that makes sense.
If you're not doing anything wrong, really, what are you what are you not afraid of? I tell that to my friends a lot. If I'm not doing anything, my friends would tell me sometimes, oh, there's a camera here, there's a camera there. I'm like, I don't even care. I don't even know, because I try to drive properly. I try not to do something wrong and all that. Yeah, so that's just to add to the answer you gave. The question I have though is there any statistics that you guys take as to the proportion of people that do some bad stuff? And when I say that, is there statistics that says, the Blacks have done this or the whites have done this much? And I asked that in reference also to, I know the crime rate has gone up a bit in Edmonton recently. I was just wondering to know that, do we know the proportion of the kind of people who have contributed more to that? Do you take such statistics, and if you do, does it influence anything basically?
Okay. Right now, I think they are trying to do more stats. They don't usually take down stats of race space at all, so they don't do that. But I think that there is maybe conversations happening of that. Maybe is that needed? But it's a very delicate thing, right, when it comes to race, because if you put stats into it, then people might just generalize that whole community, right? So that's why it's never done before. And I don't think so. There's conversation, but no, there is no stats that say there's certain community that does a certain crime. I know that they have Canadian statistics has like the incarceration, like the proportions of communities that are incarcerated. But other than that, I don't think there's actual stats of like this community is more prone to do, like there's nothing of that sort that I'm aware of personally.
All right. There was a comment online, and then we'll take a question here in person. The comment said, community policing is very important. It builds trust. In a small town, the police officers come to the library and they partake in community events like Constable Amal is here to help today, right? So the police are here for us. They are us, right? Here I am sitting with Constable Amal. I know she's a mom. I have an understanding of where she's coming from, her background, and anyone else that wants to be a police officer, we need you so that we can have people like you that we can come to, talk to, have these conversations with, and continue to grow our roots within this country as well, right? We can only do that if we're participating in all different aspects.
100%.
Yeah.
And you know what, just to talk about that, it's funny enough, I just recently was working at the Burna Boy concert. So I don't know, he was in town, and my colleagues had no idea who he was. and they're like, does anybody know who he is? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, he's Afrobeat. So they just didn't know what genre and everything. And so see, just that little thing, it's like, just so you know, like they're just here to have a good time. There's no, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's good music, because they just had no idea that like what kind of music, and it's just educating, like you said, like just having that representation in certain areas is such a great thing. And so I always encourage, and me being at Burna Boy concert, the amount of people that approach me, they're like, I always wanted to be a police officer. I'm like, well, you still can, please apply. And so it's so crazy how many people approach me on duty, just so excited to see me in uniform. And so I do think it's a very important thing to represent our community in certain areas, and as well as policing. And when somebody sees you in your uniform, they're like, oh, wow, maybe I can do that. And I'm always telling people, if you want to be a cop, do it. If you have questions for me, I'm more than happy to go for coffee with you. So yes.
All right. We have a question in person.
Hey, thanks for representing us about, like, you know, I really like the example you gave, you know, as to your colleagues not knowing you're gonna avoid. That's a good one, right? And I think my question is, so you know, from heartbreak, we face a lot of like cases, like we have this general feel of, you know, the calls based on our past experiences. And even social media, and even when I talk about social media, I'm not just talking about news media, like on news, like when you see interaction between a police officer and a person, like, you know, in movies as well, you know, there's this anxiety, this, like you said, we should remain calm and everything. But I just wanted you to walk us through like a situation like, you know, I've seen many movies where they say, oh, just put your hands up, you know, so that they don't, you know, it doesn't aggravate the situation. And you're like, does it have to be that?
No,
that's how people see it. Like,
yeah.
Say police officers stop you, you're like, jittery, like my hands are all, you know. So can you please walk us through our process of being stopped and what we are expected to do, so that we can be more well informed, and then that fear can be reduced. And no, anxiety can be positive, right? You know, like you mentioned, sometimes when you see but sometimes what we see out there on the TV, you know, might not really be like this the ideal situation. So can you walk us through an ideal situation?
Okay, that's a very good point. So media, unfortunately, always show the negative side of things, right? Like, and so people, maybe if that's the only thing, that's the only exposure you have with policing, and it's like what you see on the TV and what you see on the media and the news. Yeah, I'd be terrified as well too. It's like, oh my God, is that going to be me if I'm in that same situation? But yes, what I would say, like walking through you in a very positive, is like, so when you get stopped by a vehicle, you don't have to be hands up. You don't need to do that at all. However, they just want to see your hands. Like, you just have to have your hands out. I would say don't reach for underneath things, because that for us is like a sign of what are you reaching for? Especially if you're in a conversation and you just randomly start reaching, because in our experience, is that people are usually going for a weapon or going for something. So I wouldn't be reaching for things. And even if say that your documents are if it's not in the regular, when you're going for the glove box, you don't have to tell me I'm going to the glove box, because that's usually where everybody has their stuff, or in their center console. And you're just like, I'm carrying my documents, you can, if you feel a bit better about yourself letting them know, you can definitely let them know. But that's common areas. If it's in uncommon areas, that's maybe I would articulate like, okay, this is not, my documents are unusual, somewhere unusual. So just so you know, I'm just getting my documents. If you want, just to inform them of that, so they don't feel like, what are you up to going for, what are you looking for, right? And so, yeah, and I just follow the directions. That's it. I follow the directions, and honestly, most likely it would go quite smoothly.
I had a situation, and I admit I was speeding. And so I'm speeding, and the police officer stops me. Hey, do you recognize what you were going at? No, police officer, I do not. Show me your documents. I show him my documents. He goes and he checks. While he's doing that, I'm also like just dialing people, like, just stay on the phone with me. I'm feeling a little unsafe right now. He comes back and is like, well, we are doing a random check. I think it was a long weekend, right? So if you're speeding, we're checking if you've been drinking. I was 7 months pregnant. And he's like, have you had anything to drink? I say, no, I'm 7 months pregnant. And he's like, okay, I still have to go through the procedure. So he gives me the breathalyzer. We try it 3 times, and it's still not reading anything. Clearly, I do not know how to do that thing. And so he's like, well, unfortunately, you were going too high out of like the speed limit. I do have to give you a ticket, right? And I'm like, that's perfectly fine. I recognize that as well. I'm fine. He gives me the ticket. I have a physical copy of this ticket, and I go on with my journey. So 10 days later, I go online to check this ticket, non-existent. I'm like, okay, what's going on? When is it supposed to be? Never comes. And it turns out he actually canceled the ticket, right? And it wasn't, I followed the directions. I acknowledged where I was wrong. I went through the procedure, right? As you said, sometimes when you do cooperate, you end up with a better outcome versus saying, how dare you suspect me of drinking? I'm pregnant. I was like, well, I get it, right? Just because I'm pregnant doesn't necessarily mean that I couldn't be drinking. So I get that that's what you need to do for that particular time, and went through that whole process. Yeah. We've got 2 questions online, and then we're going to come in person. Okay.
Mine is not a question. It's a quick story.
Okay.
I'll be brief. I over instead of stopping, and I did not see the police officer. So this is Beckerville. This is a village. I call Beckerville a village. So I really did not expect to be stopped. So when the police officer stopped me, and he asked me where I was going, why I was rushing, and I said, I'm just running late for work, but I have to drop off the girls first. So clearly it doesn't look good because I'm speeding and I have kids in my car. And as he looks in, the kids are like, how is Dad? So at that point, the police officer was human enough that, hey, these are my friends, my children's friends, kids. So he really did not give me a ticket, but I'm just sharing these stories because they need to be shared too. I know we've got a lot of stories of trauma as far as police are concerned, as far as racial profiling is concerned, but we do have some police officers who still lead from the heart and who are not here to get us, who are here to actually serve and protect. And that's just one of the many stories. I've done some illegal U-turns. Clearly, I need to do better in my driving. Again, and I hear, hi, Shayla. And I'm like, oh, clearly he knows me. This is embarrassing. And I get warnings and what have you. But again, this is in a small town. And I hope that even in bigger cities like Edmonton, and I'm clearly seeing that you're doing that, Constable Amal. I think it's very important when people can put a name to the face instead of just seeing a uniform. It does work towards building the trust that we are looking for as a community, so that when we are seeing you, we don't have to worry about what could happen. We just know that you're here to serve and protect. So that's all I wanted to share. And thank you very much.
When I go to certain situations, I'm like, just so you know, behind this uniform, I'm just like you. I'm a human being. So like that, I think a lot of us, we forget that behind this uniform, they're just as human as we are. So yeah.
Go ahead, Mrs. Tope. Thank you, Shayla.
Much. Thank you, everyone. And we have a lot of offenders here. Well, we've enjoyed a lot of humanity from our police officers. It's good to know that that sense of humanity is also acknowledged by our police officers. So thank you for being vulnerable and just sharing with us. Okay, so there's another question from another student. Some of them had submitted questions before, so I'm just interrupting to bring those questions. So this person was really at fault, like they were wrong. The offense was committed and things escalated. And he felt that he was profiled as well in his treatment. I didn't get a fair treatment because he's Black and he's offended. It was a fight. He fought. And somebody was hurt in the fight. But he was interviewed without an adult. Like the police officers started to question him without an adult person. He's still a minor. I think he was 16. So he was interviewed without an adult. So things escalated. He said things, and youth can fidget when they are being interviewed and they can say all the wrong things. Some of them even lie when they are being interviewed because they just want to say the things they thought the officers want to hear. And so they get more in trouble and they just keep going down that rabbit hole. So things went out of hand. Eventually, they had to keep him without his parents. So his parents had to go back to bail him out and all that. So at what point do the youth need to tell the officer, no, you cannot question me without an adult being present? Like, what should they be aware of when, let's say they are even wrong? I know you are doing a lot of work in the space of them not being sent to jail, giving them a lot of options for corrections and things like that. Let's even say this kid was wrong. Things went out of hand. He really did the wrong thing. What's the next actions? What are the actions that has to be taken by the child or by the youth and by the family? At what point do they get a lawyer if they need to get a lawyer? All of those. Let's even say, I like all the positivity, but let's say it is bad. This kid is actually in the wrong. What are the steps? What should he do or she do? And what should the parents do?
So from my understanding, so this is a person who committed an offense and they're youth. Just so you know, when you've committed an offense, you have the right to remain silent. You don't need to talk to the police officer. You can say, I will not speak until I speak to a lawyer and then until my parents are present. He has every right to say that. So just so you know, as a youth, because even when we read you your Charter of Rights, they will tell you what offense you committed. They'll tell you so they'll say, it's a long spiel, which I can't say it all right now, but so they'll give you a little spiel. They explain to you what charge. So it's always you may be charged or you are charged. So there's two lines for that. So you can be charged or you may be charged. So they'll say that to you and they'll tell you what offense you committed. So say in this instance you said an assault. So they say you're going to be charged for assault. And then the next question they ask you is, do you want to speak to a lawyer? And if you say yes, they cannot ask you any question until you've consulted with your lawyer. So you don't have to speak and speak to whatever you've done, because then the next line is going to say, they're going to caution you and say, whatever you say may be given in evidence. So just so you are aware, whatever you continue to tell me after they read your rights, they will document that and that will be documented and held against you, whatever you've done, right? So I would say if the child is just scared and they committed an offense and they don't want to, I would say don't speak. Just say, I want to speak to a lawyer. I won't say anything and nobody can force you to talk. It's not a thing. So you have to cooperate to if you want to talk about it. And then if usually when they do interview youth, I'm interested about that. They do ask the parent to be there because there's usually consent and everything like that. So I'm surprised that there was no parent at that point. But yeah, I would just say, don't talk and say, I want to speak to a lawyer because you have a right to talk to your lawyer.
So, Constable, how do we balance that coming from cultures where when an adult asks you a question, you have to respond, right? So, how do we balance that?
I would just say, especially in a situation, if you have done nothing wrong, you could just say what you like. I'm not involved. I never did anything. I don't. At that point, I wouldn't say you don't have to answer an officer because you've done nothing wrong. But if you have done something wrong and you're like, oh no, this might be like I might be in real trouble, then I would just remain silent and just contact a lawyer. So I would just, I would say don't talk then.
So in other words, the silence isn't going to be used as against you in that situation.
The only thing is, it won't be used anything against you, and you're exercising your rights. That's all you're doing. So I would say you can exercise your right and just say, I don't want to talk until I speak to a lawyer.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a follow-up question to that. Sorry, there's a follow-up to that. It's a different question, but I will just bring it now. Sorry, Ms. Nari. I know it's tougher when you are in the situation. It's easier to say be calm, and we will keep preaching that gospel of calmness to the youth so that they don't keep getting in trouble because some of them just go blabbing, so we'll keep encouraging them to be calm and all that. So thank you for emphasizing that. But let's say a lawyer is required, and our background, a lot of us don't have lawyers. We don't have any will written. We don't like legal thing is not what we do. In fact, there are people that are, that really, really need legal services, maybe in a divorce situation or abuse situation. They wouldn't even reach out to get help because that's not what we do. We want to pretend like everything is okay. Do you have resources to access lawyers for Black people? Do you have links to, access to lawyers, or maybe Ms. Nori or Ms. Sheila, as that kind of information that we can share with our community? Because I've seen people suffer because they just couldn't access the right resources on time.
We don't have any database with certain, we don't provide that just because there's so many races we deal with and so many communities. But there is, if they don't have a lawyer at that very moment, we do give them a free legal advice service number that they can access right away just to speak to a lawyer, because it's sometimes all hours, right? And lawyers don't work all hours because we deal with people all different times. And so that at least that free legal advice service is available. I wouldn't say all, you call it and then they can contact a person and there'll be a person on the other line to give them some kind of guidance. But just so you know, in that very moment, you are not like, if you can't get a hold of a lawyer, don't feel like, oh no, it's over. No, later on, definitely I always tell people, I encourage people, go find yourself a lawyer. I don't know any lawyers or anything to recommend people, but I definitely do encourage people to seek out in their own communities, and what the resources are available. I don't know to it. I don't know if you know any resources.
Well, I think what you're speaking to, it's unlike the movies where always that agency of like your lawyer comes into the room and you're taken out. That's not how the real world is going to look like, right? In reality, everything has time and space, right? From the time that you are picked up for having an offense to the time where you're going to need lawyer, you're given time and space in between that, right? The different rights that you have in between, such as you don't have to say anything. If you're caught in the act of something, you wait and say, can I have a phone call? You can reach out. There is the legal aid clinic. There's also the student legal services where students volunteer as part of their internship to become lawyers, that they do that. But I cannot speak to what particular offenses they'll be able to do or not, right? So I think that's sometimes it's too general and too specific at the same time, that not every situation will have a 1-800 number, dial this one, and you get that specific thing, right? So it's just a matter of saying you don't have to have all the answers in the moment.
No.
Right. And that's that agency that comes out of that experience that people feel in the moment. We do have, I think I had 2-3 questions in the room. Go ahead.
Cognizant of time, I wanted to ask what kind of anti-racism training is received in EPS?
So when you join EPS in recruiting class, they do a lecture, which is pretty much talking about different cultures and like racism. And we actually have people who come from certain communities and they actually come for like a day. I don't know if they still, I'm pretty sure they still do it. And so then you can actually interact with certain communities, especially if you don't have that exposure, because some people are from small towns or some people have just never had an exposure to other cultures. So then they actually do physically come to our training center, and then we actually interact with them and we do like exercises. So that's when you join. So there is like training then, and then ongoing training. We do online. We do every year. We have like multiple things that we have to do to kind of keep our training up to date. And so one of them is just biases and like all that. So it's all online kind of training. There's no actual in-person training, but yeah, there is some training, but limited, I would say.
All right.
Would you like to see it expanded?
I definitely would like to see it expanded. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do we still have questions? Yes.
I think a lot of other people talked the questions I wanted to ask. And part of it is the training she mentioned. Because my thought is that I hope the police understand the peculiarity of the culture and personality of the Black people. The other time we spoke about respect, right? You want to respect the police person and they respect you as well. But sometimes some of the things that come from us come across as disrespectful when your intention is not to be disrespectful. So if the person at the receiving end, the police person in this situation, understands that this person is not being disrespectful intentionally based on the learning, the training they have about the culture of this person, they won't take it personal, they won't take it as being disrespectful, and they will be able to help that person come to terms so that they will be on the same line, on the same page, and whatever the issue is will be resolved, amicably. So that understanding is crucial, especially for new immigrants. Most of the time, we're still coming raw. We are raw people, right? Like you just talk, the police we were dealing with back home is different from the police people we are meeting here, right? So you just want to put up a fight when, it's a police, you want to defend yourself, you want to say, yeah, who are you? Right? So that understanding on the part of the police is important. And on our part, I think maybe we can do more training for our people 100%. On how to, relate with the police, which is what we are doing right now, but for new immigrants, especially, so that they understand. We had an encounter when we newly came. My husband was not using his seatbelt, and our 5-year-old was, sitting at the back, and he was on the booster seat, whatever, at that time. I really appreciate what that policeman did. You were not in seatbelt and you were, driving on the street. Number one, he was beeping the lights to stop him. He didn't stop. He didn't know he was supposed to stop. And then he kept going. Then this car was coming. He kept going. He kept going. He didn't know. He drove into the kids' school part. The policeman came after him. He came, okay, Mr. Man, what's the problem? What are you doing? I've been stopping you since. I don't know. He saw the kid. You're not using your seatbelt. Oh, really? Yeah, I think something happened. I forgot to put it back. Okay, can I see your papers? He saw the papers. And he's like, yeah, my son just came to register at the school and I don't want to miss the appointment and blah, blah, blah. The man just let him go. And we felt that understanding from his part, and which was really crucial. From that day, we knew what to do, what not to do. So my point here, after all this stuff, is that we need the police people to know more of the peculiarity of the people. We want to respect them, 1. 2, for new immigrants, they probably do not understand what they are supposed to do at that time. And if there could be some level of leniency towards,
to new immigrants at that point. That would be much appreciated.
Can I try and summarize that for the people online? Because I think they didn't get to hear that beautiful story. So our sister in the room just asked, there's training that the police officers receive, but would like to see more training that goes into understanding different experiences and different individuals, right? And she shared an example of where her family was, the police officer was attempting to stop them, but they didn't realize that was what the police officer was doing. Right. And that's not because they didn't want to respect the rules or follow the rules, but it's truly not knowing. Right. And so she's asking for that leniency and understanding from the police officer that comes from getting to know people and their lived experiences. And then also from that day on, the family also learned that this is what you do and followed the rules because they knew. Right. So creating that relationship where everybody feels heard and supported, not just simply feeling like the rules, these are the rules, you've done something wrong, right? Because then that leaves a sour taste. You are not following the rules because you have an understanding. You're following as if there's this invisible person that's pushing you to follow the rules. And the room was in agreement with having that shared understanding. So I'll give it to you to respond.
Yeah, no, you know what? I feel like within the service, they're always trying to improve, right? They're always trying to be better. And so I think these conversations and like having this conversation of like educating us, I feel like it is very important. But yeah, some of them just don't have the exposure themselves. Just the way you don't have exposure to the police, some of the officers don't have exposure to the different cultures out there as well too. So we also have to take that into consideration as our community to explain our own belief, because it'd be hard for them because some of them haven't even left the country. You know what I mean? And so they don't have that exposure, right? And so for me, I'm lucky enough that I have lived experience. So I know when I see my own people with it, you know what I mean? And I can tell that it's not coming from a negative place. But for them, to expect that from them, it will be hard, I would say. But I would even take that opportunity to teach them. Just as you learned, they can also learn, right? Because we all learn through lived experience, as she was just saying. And so I just think that I think it's for both ends that we both need to come to the table, try to understand each other from where we're coming from our community and from the police side as well too, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think what we're echoing with that is we are open to coming and having the conversations as long as the police officers are open to having us coming to have those conversations. Just being aware of the time, and I know we can go on with our conversation forever. We're going to take one last question and then we can take a bio break. Yes, last question.
Okay, well, not exactly a question, but I think it's a call to Ms. Topai Olotu, because she can now see that there is a need to foster this sort of community questions. What is she going to do now as Aspire Hub to find the grants, the funding to facilitate this sort of conversation between the EPS and newcomer immigrants like ourselves? So please, can we let Ms. Olotu answer, and then we'll take a bio break.
Ms. Olotu,
Challenge. And I'm so blessed. Yes, I like the vibe. When your police officer has the vibes, and it's so cool like this. You work with the youth, and you just have all the right vibes going on there, Constable. All right, so challenge accepted. We will keep fighting. We'll keep looking for opportunities to engage our community. I feel so blessed that we have people like this in our community. I feel so blessed with this connection. I will continue to come back for more as the Oliver Twist that I am. On behalf of the youth, we will be inviting you more to keep this education series going, to keep an open forum for our youth to ask questions. It's all we can do. We just have to keep it going. So thank you, Ms. T, for that challenge. It's accepted.
Well, I will say thank you, Constable Amal. And when you see her on the road, wave, not distractedly. Don't break any rules.
Yes.
But thank you for being here and answering our questions and creating the space. If you do have questions for Constable Amal that you were not able to ask, put them in the chat. Send them directly to, I think mine says T, You can send them directly and then they'll get to her. She is part of our community and she's happy to answer questions, go for coffee with you. You are buying, but she's happy to do that.
We will be happy to have her for coffee in person with our kids.
Exactly, right?
And thank you for this open invitation. Seriously, this means a lot. We will be coming back again, Constable. When you came the last time back in August, I said we will have you back, and thank you for coming this time. And we will be inviting you back. We need to keep this going. It's very healthy for us to know that we have advocates for us in the service, and to know that we have people that got our back and that understand us. And as you are doing this, you see a lot more youths might even be joining the service. You never know.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And honestly, I'm more, if I am available, I will be here. And I'm always ready to talk with the community, sit down with the community, and try to inspire youth to, join the force as well too. If they ever have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer it. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Maura. We appreciate you. Thank you.